2005, so we met the criteria. However, the Ministry of Health has now re-looked at those and said that they believe that we should add protozoa treatment, that there is an element of risk associated with the aqua feed that is deconfied. So it's for that reason the report will come back and say what we would like to do to ensure is what we do for the other suppliers, which will be ultraviolet disinfection membrane, and then chlorine for residual treatment.
Thank you for that information, because I got that information and I was under the impression from the information I received that they were all, and I actually told the members of the public that they were all treated with chlorination, microfiltering. So I did,
And if I may just add on that, our water supplies are tested every 4 days. That information, if we get anything that is of concern, we are advised immediately. We've also agreed that the Ministry of Health, with the laboratories that do our tests, that they have the authority. We've actually instructed them to release that information to the Ministry of Health immediately, because in terms of confidentiality, that information is ours, and so they were reluctant to provide that. We've said, well, we don't want to stand in the way of that information, so it's open and transparent communication. So if there is an occasion where there might be a false positive, we'd rather alert the ministry, and then we would move into a boil water emergency, something like that. So that's all part of the protocols that were actually signed off a couple of years ago. But the incidents that's occurred more recently has just focused the mind again. We're having a look at those procedures and making sure that everybody knows what those procedures are.
thank you for that, because once again, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a secure bore, you say. What is a secure bore then, please?
Okay, so a secure aquifer is...
Or aquifer, sorry, contains confined aquifer.
Yeah, so there are two elements to it. First of all, the aquifer itself has to be secure, so that means that the pressure in the aquifer is greater than the pressure in the water surrounding that aquifer.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so it means that the water then flows out of the aquifer rather than into the aquifer.
Yeah. Okay.
You then have a problem as more and more people take water out of the aquifer, the pressure in the aquifer does reduce. Yes. So that risk is that you start getting a bit of a mixing area adjacent to them. In addition to that, as part of your resource consent, when you put a bore in, you need to have adequate wellhead protection so that nothing can get in around the bore itself. So you need to make sure there's some backflow. Also, what the suggestion is before the council's bores, we have an exclusion area so you don't have any stock or anything getting into that area. That is theoretically what everybody who's got a bore should be doing. It doesn't always occur, and so that is all an opportunity for pollutants to get in. And it's as a result of all of that the Ministry of Health is advising council that we should now add a little bit of treatment, and that is what the report will put to council early in the new term.
Thank you for that clarity. Councillor Bell, and then
I raised the issue of Pataro's water on August 8th, which was about a week before Havelock North came up, and I was expecting a response from Mr. Anderson today as part of the corporate and regulatory meeting, but I'm assuming he's probably covered most of that now. The only other thing that he hasn't covered, and I don't know if this is the right place, but Pataro water still has an E grade, which means not unsatisfactory, and yet we're promoting Pataro as having the world's basically finest water. So I just wonder if that grading, how that's upgraded and when that could be upgraded.
I'm familiar with the grading system, but I'll, through you, Chief Executive, Mr. Anderson will be able to clarify that. It's a series of requirements.
On page 14 of this report, under the minute action sheet, we provided a brief description of what is occurring. It's our intention to bring back a report to a subsequent council meeting going through that. The reason for E-grading is because the ministry has said that despite the fact of it being a confined aquifer, they would now prefer us to undertake some additional treatment. So that is why we've been given that we have to, because it's based on a risk potential. So we need to satisfy the Ministry of Health if there is no risk. So so it's a very high level of security that we need to demonstrate, and the only way to demonstrate that would be for the additional treatment. So that is why we're going to come back to council with a request to increase the budget next year to provide that additional issue. Yes, it's just something we need to be aware of, but probably not concerned about at this stage.
Happy with that?
Yes, so sort of, I'm just worried about the reputation risk as well. There's new people coming to town, having been told how wonderful our water is, and then when they see that it's, so yes, hopefully it will be some change.
You want to add to that?
Well, no, I actually have a couple of questions through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So just in terms of the grades, Mr. Anderson, is it an A, B, C, D, E?
Yes, that's correct.
And are we talking about both water suppliers and Taru, because there are two?
It's the Gangshi ball that is the one that does not achieve recertification, and it will achieve it if we add in the filtration and the UV disinfection. So currently it's deemed to be at risk by the Ministry of Health, and that's the decision.
So to go through this is, again, another question. So the Waiha take, what's the grade on that? And we have all the different mitigations in place for that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm not 100% on what the grade is there. The other assessment, I suppose this is where it gets quite murky. The grading that we've done some time ago, the Ministry of Health then suspended the regradings, but still published the gradings at the time. We are trying to get it regraded, but it doesn't help for us to ask for it to be regraded until we've done the extra work. So they won't regrade it until we do the work, but it does paint us in a darker position than we probably should be. But until we've done all the work, we can't get it graded. And the other thing about the ministry is that they are loath to do the regrading because they try and come up with something that's better than the current grading. They realise that it's been a bit of that it can be a bit of a rough process rather than the sophisticated process that they were hoping for.
Thank you, Councillor.
Just before I ask my question, Mr. Chairman, my views of what Mr. Anderson has just said is that with Red Chain, water is not sort of high standard. I disagree with Councillor Bell that, as far as I know, certainly in the time I've been on this council, it's not a very long time, but there's been no issues with the Red Chain water supply forever, and it tested every 4 days. So, you know, and it might cost $500,000, $1 million to, or whatever it costs further treatment, which I imagine will be considerable. And yet, you know, by Councillor Edmonds on my left here, who probably drinks water from that source every day, and she looks a healthy specimen. So, you know, that gets back to your risk management issue. The thing, from a government's point of view, that I want to bring up on this report is the question of the KPIs. Now, I sit on various boards, and there's a degree of cynicism and a bit dubious about how these KPIs are set. And I guess it's the CEO's job to review these KPIs from time to time. I haven't finished my question yet. I haven't even done it. Don't mind. So we've got these KPIs, and as I say, a CEO and various sub-managers love to see their KPIs with the word achieved on. And I guess that helps when it comes to looking at bonuses or, you know, improved wage payouts and so forth. So it's well known in the corporate world that there's a little bit of manipulation by some people, certainly not our staff, that in terms of the achievement on KPIs. Now, then I'm just looking at one example. I personally think, for instance, just as an example, in page 17, where it says, and this is one that hasn't been achieved, the council responded 100% of all service requests. This is for within 10 working days. Now, we all know that people are starting to battle with this idea of a service request in terms of, the way to go about putting something forward. And I'm including councillors here as well. It should be done through a service request. But if you ask the average person in the street, when they talk about a pothole, you say, well, why don't you put a bloody service request in? They probably don't really, on the whole, know what a service request is. And what I would say, for example, in that particular objective, would be that it should include not only service requests, but, for instance, councillors, members' information requests. Now, on my right here is Councillor Van Ruy, and I'll tell you what, he's just a great person for spotting things around the community, particularly in the rural community, that haven't been done, such as, sidings not mown every 6 months or whatever the policy is. But no one gets back, and I had a more recent one for myself, the Tirau Community Board. I raised it and I went through, and it's here, and I've had no response. That was, for 2 months now, there's been a slip in Okawari Road that's had cones around it, and it's really just a matter of a new, as a result of a collapsed culvert which needs to be replaced. And it's been sitting there for bloody ages. Nothing's been done. And I have brought this up on a couple of occasions, made some phone calls, brought it up to the Tirau Community Board, and still I have received no response. So what I'm saying is, those sorts of requests from councillors who probably should also use service requests, because we know what service requests are, the public don't. But that should be included, I think, in terms of achievement of that KPI. Now, that's just one example. So what I'm saying is the KPIs, some of them, may be a bit restrictive and make sort of council's management officers look better than what perhaps they might be, for those examples I've given. So what I would like to ask, how often are these reviewed? What is the opportunity for council to have an input on these KPIs? And how often is that done? And, that sort of thing.
Some of those questions I'll refer to the Chief Executive, but the KPIs are one that should be ticked off around this table, in my opinion. These are external KPIs in relation to the council's performance, and they go into the public arena. So therefore, like risk and like health and safety, these KPIs are a part of governance. Now, when you set the KPIs, your Chief Executive will say your KPI is unreasonable unless you provide me with additional resources to do X, Y, Z. So there's always a tension between that council setting KPIs and the resources within the organisation to provide them. And I don't mean necessarily staff, it might be money, it might be contract arrangements, it could be anything sitting in behind that you need to be aware of when you set those KPIs. But my opinion is that the dialogue should be held with you when those KPIs are set. With regards to councillors' requests for services, I'm sorry, I don't know how they work here, but I'm sure Mr. Hobbs will be able to tell us.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I will just point out to councillors, I'm sure you're all aware that every 6 weeks we do report to you on the KPIs through the corporate regulatory reports. So they are very visible to you, and you certainly are welcome to question those at any time. One thing that we as an exec team have been working on over the last short while is around the different ways that information comes into council nowadays. And you're right, it's not just through service requests, there's a whole lot of different avenues. We need to capture that, we need to work and get those into our systems as well. The service request system works very, very well for us. It's a very effective system, albeit not everyone uses it. So that's something that we are considering at the moment. I think the other thing, and if you look at the satisfaction survey, there is a concern, and it's a one-off at this stage, so trends will be will put into the long-term position, but there does appear to be a concern from members of the public that we take a while to do anything around service requests. That's probably something we need to consider, but I think the other thing that we're very clear on is how we close the loop. So your situation, Councillor McGill, around the slum, I can't answer that specifically, but we need to be able to, if you've requested a response to that, what we're doing and when we're doing it. So you've got, so to say, to close the loop. That's something we're probably not doing as well as we could be at the moment, but we are addressing.
And I'd commend to you, Mr Chief Executive and Council, that councillors' requests go through the Chief Executive's Department. Not through the rest of the organisation, but through the Chief Executive's Department. And I say that for two reasons. One, the Chief Executive gets to know exactly what's going on, and that's very important, and can allocate resources accordingly. And two, that's where your accountability is with your CE. So I probably commend to you, Mr Hobbs and the Council, that a council request system actually, even though it might be your automated system, actually is managed through your department somehow, rather than just going down into the bowels of the organisation, because the councillors do have a lot of people asking questions and can be influence informers within their community, and if councillors do get quick responses, they can disseminate that, therefore reducing the workload on staff. Councillor Bell.
A little while ago I had so many complaints from people who said they hadn't had responses from council that I asked or suggested that a log system be introduced where people who make a service request, but I mean that to cover inquiries as well when they didn't use those words service request, so that there was some record that they'd phoned in that day or whatever, and we could check whether they had a response. I'm just wondering how that's being applied, because I've rung up about certain things and people hadn't known who I was, but I've never been given a number or anything, and I'm wondering whether that's being applied only if they use the word service request, or if all inquiries to council, to me, should have some sort, if it's something where the council is going to call them back, perhaps they should have some.
Maybe I hand up to Mr Hobbs. I think that's I kind of don't want to get into an hour's discussion around service requests. I think Mr Hobbs is getting a clear message that there are some areas that may need to be looked at or addressed, and maybe you'll respond to that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. So every phone call that comes in the council is logged, and the issue is logged in the system. We get a report on a monthly basis, I think it's weekly basis, weekly, as to where those requests sit. Again, the service requests are very easy to measure and monitor. Some of the other ones through the system that come to a customer service officer or something, maybe a little bit, we've got to delve into that. But certainly we do log every call and action, whether it's overdue or whether we've been a long time, who the responsible officer is, because again, it's not always our staff that are responsible for doing it, but we'll pass those requests on to down for roads and the likes. Still under our auspices with the payment.
And that's where the KPIs came from, and those are checked off.
Yeah, I mean, the KPIs are, as we discussed, are an interesting thing, and it's something we need to consider. We can't change KPIs. Sorry, just to be clear, it has to be done long-term plan to long-term plan phase. So we've basically got this long for 3 years, and we've talked about that before, where it is a frustration where we know some of them perhaps don't work as well as they could do, but we are looking into the next long-term plan process. And we'll certainly be considering those at an executive level. We come back to you as elected officials to say we think these are accurate measures of what we should be considering. And certainly, again, I think the satisfaction survey will give us some direction around that as well. School, do you have anything further that we've covered?
I think we've covered it. Yeah, so we discussed the KPIs in council workshops in 2012, when we were, 2014, sorry, when we were developing the long-term plan. So they're adopted as part of the long-term plan, and it'll be about this time next year where we'll be coming back to look at reviewing these ones and seeing what's appropriate for the 2018 long-term plan.
I would like to come back to the safety of water supplies for a moment, and I struggle with the idea that all water supply at all times needs to have chemicals in it, and I query the balance between total safety of water supply through the addition of chemicals and the safety of the chemicals themselves. And I'm not looking for an answer, but I just want to raise that because I'm not totally, I don't believe that 100% safety exists, and that is why we manage risk, but also the risk of chemicals that are all pervasive through life, concerning to some extent.
And I think that's an excellent example about the discussion you need to have at a governance level around risk and what appetite you have in relation to risk. Because your staff will always advise you, and correctly so, what are the national standards. Then it's over to you as councillors to modify, if you so wish, clearly instructing your staff why and accepting that risk. Because your staff will always err on the side of what is the regulation. Why are we doing this? This is the basic requirement in relation to Mr. I've forgotten the name to you. Anderson's, it's the flu I've got, I think. He will always advise you about what is the requirement from Ministry of Health. It's over to you to accept the level of risk. Some communities, fluoridation is the best one around whether water is has fluoride in it or not. And I've seen some very interesting public debates around that issue. So it's about the degree of risk you want to accept and clearly understand that risk. And I think that's where that issue we talked about before on your appetite for risk in terms of the risk register. So do I have any other councillor?
Just on that same line that Councillor Boyd was talking about, we've got water bottling plants that take water from the Blue Spring. They bottle it, as far as I know, without any treatment, and that's presented to the public throughout New Zealand and other parts of the world as being safe water. I would have thought that if there's any risk at all involved in bottling that water, it would appear at the end of the water bottling plant line, and they would be aware of any risk. None has ever been raised, and I think the council are probably worrying about things that we shouldn't be worried about.
Maybe staff can answer that question. Is there any treatment that you're aware of?
My understanding is that they take it just straight out of the line, put it in, the bottles themselves are sterilised, but the water goes in.
To be honest, it's not our business if we don't. I'm not totally familiar. My understanding is they actually do UV treat. They don't chlorinate, so they don't add anything into it, but they do put some mitigation. Having said that, I think we're probably better to go to the holders and ask them.
Yeah, I think we will. The interesting thing about water, isn't it? Everyone moans about the bill you send for water. For what do you charge? About $1.50 per cubic metre, 1,000 litres? $1.03. So you sell the community 1,000 litres of water for $1.03, and they moan, but they're quite happy to go to a garage and pay $3 for half a litre of water. And if you work that out, it's about $3,000 for the equivalent amount of water that they're taking out of the ground and selling with a bit of UV treatment. It's quite interesting, isn't it? The public's perception around what they're receiving. I've had a good discussion around that, and I've let that go because I think it's really important from a public's perspective that we interrogate those issues that are in front of us, especially around water quality at the moment, given the situation in the Bay. So I don't think there's any further questions on the KPIs. Anything you want to add, staff? Thank you. Well, on page 16, we've got a resolution that the report be received. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor McGill, Councillor Bell. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carry.